So in this video we will see how to create variables inside our scripts. So we will start by actually explaining what a variable is. So what are variables? Because we need really to answer this question before we actually introduce them. So think about a script, in this case, or a program. I mean, as we explained in the first video, scripting languages are basically programming languages, and well, in everyday language, when a language is Turing complete, we can just refer to a programming language. More precisely, Bash scripting is a scripting language. So when we talk about Bash programs, we will call them Bash scripts. So when we have a Bash script, very often we might want to, well, we will deal with data very often, and this data sometimes we might want to store it inside some, we could say, labels, boxes with a label on top of it. You can think of variables on a very high level as some sort of container that contains some data with a label on top of it, so that you can know what's inside of it. So imagine having some books, okay, that you put inside some boxes, and imagine that you have on a box you have French literature, and you have, I don't know, Flaubert and these kind of authors, and then you have on another box you have Russian literature, and well, if you wanted to separate the books of your library in these classifications, then maybe in another box you want to put math books. Okay, so imagine you have to distinguish between these boxes, which maybe you took some boxes that are all the same and all have the same color, in order to distinguish between the box that will contain Russian literature books from the box that will contain math books, and from the box that will contain French literature. You're probably going to put a label on top of it, maybe with you're not gonna glue it on it, and you're gonna just write with a marker French books, or on the other hand math books, and so on. And so on a high level, and so functionally speaking, this means on a high level you can kind of think about variables in this way. Now we will see how to actually declare variables. To declare a variable, which we need to distinguish between declaration and initialization. Here in Bash we will now see how to declare and initialize at the same time. Declaring means telling the program that we are creating this variable by giving it a name. Initializing, on the other hand, means giving it a value. So giving it the first value, the initializing value. Assigning means giving the variable a value. And this could also be giving it a value after we already initialized it, meaning that it might have already a value, then we can change it, then that is still an assignment. So let's see how to declare and create a variable. So to creating the variable and setting its initial value to something, we just have to say variable name here. So the variable name can be whatever we want. It can be var. It's what is known in programming as an identifier. And so we decide the name of it. Then we will use an equal sign. This equal sign means we're assigning something to it, and we're going to assign the value. So for example, imagine that we want to assign the value hello. So this we have now just created. So we can use a comment, for example. We have seen it in the last video. Created a variable called var with value, storing value hello. So this data type, which we created, is sometimes called a string. So now be careful with Bash scripting, also Bash on Windows. They're not very strict about data types. They're very simple scripting languages that are meant to do some, we could say, repetitive, easy tasks in the terminal. So they're not like statically typed languages with very strict typing rules. And no, in this case, it is a little bit. Sometimes Bash scripts can be very, very ambiguous. But for now, just know that this is how you create a variable. You can assign to it a text value, also a number value, and we will refer to this alphanumeric, we could say, strings of characters as strings, because yes, they are in fact strings of characters, in particular ASCII characters. If you're interested in what ASCII characters are, you can look it up on the internet. You will get an ASCII chart and maybe understand a little bit better why they're called strings, because they're concatenations of characters. If you come from programming languages like C, you already know this. But if not, you can look it up maybe to complement. But you do not need to know how strings work on a lower level to understand them, of course. We can also assign, for example, a numeric value such as 22. And also, now you might ask, well, but are there some naming rules? Because we have, and we will see later, there are reserved keywords in all programming languages, but also, of course, in Bash. And also sometimes we might ask, well, what if we create a variable that's called var and then another variable that's called var all capital letters, or maybe a variable like this? Are they equal or not? And well, there are a few rules that we have to keep in mind. So the first one is that variables cannot start with a number. They can only start with underscores or letters, basically. And I'll show you why. And also, we cannot use special characters while defining a variable. And also, going back to what we said earlier, and that is, are these two variables the same? The answer is no, because variable names are case sensitive. So variable names are case sensitive. They cannot start with a number. So for example, if I call the variable var is equal to hello, let's see what happened. As you can see, we're having an error. But if we now change this to var, let's see what happens now. As you can see, everything is fine. And also, let's try to call it to start it with an underscore. Let's see what happens. As you can see, still everything is fine. Now you might ask, we know how to create variables, but how can we access it throughout the program? So far we only know the echo instruction, the echo command to print out stuff to the console. So maybe we would want to print out our variables to the console. How can we do that? Well, the way in which we can do that is by using the $sign. And also another note that I forgot to mention is that when you declare variables, be careful that the equal sign has to be next to the string, because if we put a space in between, maybe if you come from programming languages such as pretty much all programming languages, when you create variables, it doesn't matter if you include a space between the variable identifier and the value you're assigning to it. But in this case, with bash, it will throw an error, as you can see, var command not found. That's because when we assign it, the interpreter needs to know that it's an assignment by putting the equals right next to the variable name. So now, back to what we were saying earlier, how can we access a variable that we created? We do that via the $sign. So if we use the $sign and then followed by the name of the variable we created, we will access the value of the variable. Let's try and do that. In fact, as you can see here, we get our value low. So, and also another thing which we should be careful about is the difference between double quotes and single quotes in Bash, which affects string formatting. So, as you can see here, if we run our script this way, or using double quotes, the script knows that we are going to print out the content of this variable. So, and we also can format it inside a bigger string. So, for example, we can change it with the name, with some name. So my name is, for example, we can say here my name is Jack, and by closing the double quotes, let's try to run this program. As you can see, we get my name is Jack. But what if we switch these quotes with single quotes? So let's see what happens. And if we run, you can get we will get my name is $_var. So why did that happen? Is it because we made some error with the variables? No, our code is fine. As you can see, it's the same as before, except with these two quotes. So what happened is that when we include single quotes, the string will not be formatted with the values after the $signs. They will be treated like literal characters. On the other hand, when we include double quotes, the interpreter knows that we want to format the string. So now we've seen how to print out the content of variables also inside other strings by formatting them in the terminal. But we can also use string formatting. This means we can also basically access the values of some variables and put them inside of bigger strings and assign new variables to these values. So for example, we can declare a new variable, new var, and set it equal to all of this. Now if we print new var, let's see what happens. So we echo, actually, this is to the console. As you can see, we get my name is Jack. That is because what we did is the following. We declared and initialized our value to the value string Jack. Then we created another variable, new var, which is the following formatted string. It is my name is, and then the $sign, the name of the first variable. This tells the interpreter, okay, in place of this, just place the value of the _var variable. Then we just printed out to the console the value of the new var keyword. And again here, if we placed single quotes, we will just get $new var. So the same considerations as before. Now before we conclude the video, I just want to show you that since Bash is a scripting language for the terminal, you can create variables also directly in the shell. and you can also access them. So you can do this. And accessing variables inside the terminal might come quite in handy sometimes, especially if, for example, you've ever run, for example, assembly programs by an assembler inside of your terminal. Then you can access for example, the exit value of your programs when you perform an exit syscall. You can access them via basically a variable, because those are stored inside of a variable in the shell. So with this said, I think we've said enough about variables, and in the next video we will proceed with our treatment of the bash scripting language.